This is Bob Balch from Fu Manchu, and you're watching Aftershock TV.
All right, so Tom, news now. Of course, we know about Kerry King, but we got a lot of other stuff that's going on too. Why don't you go ahead and give us what you got this week?
Yeah, what did we go to jump into, Matt? Sorry, I've got my notes here. We're talking about Kerry King.
Schenker.
We had Schenker. Yes, thank you, sir. So Michael Schenker. I'm two things on him. First of all, we get to the second part because that's where the meat and potatoes is. I think is that Schenker releasing our Michael Schenker group. Michael Schenker, he goes by so many different monikers. Is re-releasing the first 4 albums, which I think are fantastic. First album, second album, fourth is Built to Destroy. Is a little bit keyboardy. I think that was released in '83. But re-release on Schenker, I'm a big fan. He is another musician that really lost his way. He came out with 4 classic albums. Obviously the first 2 with Gary Barden, then Graham Bonnet jumped on. I think did Graham Bonnet take his dick out on stage or something and got fired or something like that? Something crazy like that.
I'm not sure.
I think it did. Yeah. I think that's what happened. And then he lost the gig, and then Gary Barden came back for Built to Destroy in '82, '83. But Assault Attack for me is probably one of the best albums of the entire '80s. With literally, if anyone goes back, if you just maybe sometimes you forget about an album, you have to go back on it. It is a tremendous album. Just MSG Scorpions rolled into one, but. One of the things, the reissue is coming out in the next couple of weeks, like 6 CD box set, rarities, live stuff, and remaster of the usual works. But so I'm looking forward to that. I'm a big fan of those first 4. But one of the questions that we were discussing, Matt, is Michael Schenker an overrated or an underrated guitar player? Because you're going to see 2 different schools of thought on this one, I think.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, when I think of Schenker, obviously. He's the guy that every rock and metal guitarist obviously loves and idolizes, right? I mean, Kirk Hammett, all these guitarists just idolize Michael Schenker, and for good reason, obviously, right? Amazing guitarist. I would lean towards he's underrated, and I think one of the reasons he is underrated is because he never got huge here in the States as a solo artist. I mean, I'm like I said, I know he's big and obviously he's huge in Europe, but here he really didn't. Obviously, even UFO, they're big bands still in the States, but not as big as they were overseas in Europe. Scorpions, obviously. Now remember too, right? Yeah, of course. When the Scorpions, they weren't big here until the '80s in the States. When Rock You Like a Hurricane, and he wasn't obviously with them at that point. So I think a lot with him. What I remember my first time hearing Michael Schenker was the album, the one he did with Robin McCauley, On and On, right? Isn't that Robin McCauley on that one? Yeah.
2 albums he released with McCauley.
Yeah,
3 albums actually. 3 albums with McCauley.
Oh wow. Okay. So yeah, On and On was like, to me, I think one of the bigger hits. I remember my dad, had it on his cassette tape, one of his mixtapes or something, and so that's how I started hearing about Schenker. But I didn't hear him on the radio much. I mean, I was, 8 years old, but I was listening to a lot of music still at that age. But yeah, he just wasn't really that big here in the States, unless you were a person who followed, metal to the teeth. If you got imports and you followed all the overseas stuff. But he didn't really get on the radio. He wasn't on MTV really. So I think because of that. That's why I think he's underrated, because especially with the '80s, once MTV, as came out, that's how everyone was discovering rock and metal. I mean, it was obviously record clubs and stuff like that they had too, and all these, Columbia House, all these things. But but Schenker he wasn't really a huge part of anything we were seeing on MTV or on the radio or anything. So I think. That's why I think he's underrated, just because here in the States, it's like Thin Lizzy, right? Like, I mean, not to go backtrack on them, but they're another band that didn't have a huge impact in the States, yet they're enormous in Europe. Yeah. And same thing. People here might think like, yeah, they're really underrated. It's like, well, no, it's just because they didn't get over. They just didn't break here like a lot of the other bands did. Obviously, once MTV came out and you had all the hair metal, anything that was musically proficient like that, like Schenker and Thin Lizzy, whatever, It was, and they were a little bit older. No, we had to go to new, and then they didn't focus on them. You had to you had to be like Whitesnake, W. Coverdale, and fit in and dress the part and move to Sunset Strip. And Michael Schenker wasn't that kind of guy. He's kind of like an introverted guy. He's not like a guy who's out there to want attention. He just is. He's I think your quintessential artist, Michael Schenker. He's all about just him create music. He even said he doesn't even listen to music. He's your your classic non-music fan musician is Michael Schenker. He doesn't listen to anything.
I'm trying to get this fucking light right. Hang on. The light just went off. My phone's too bright, but whatever. But leave it in. It's fun.
Okay.
But I think I'm in your camp that he is underrated because if you just look at his body of work, and I think he was on his body of work, what he did with UFO. Strangers in the Night, the live album, his contribution to Scorpions, his solo stuff, his recent solo stuff, kind of his resurgence again. And he always had a huge presence in Japan. He was selling a Budokan when he couldn't sell out 3 seats in a club over here. So I think his body of work, I think as a musician, he's underrated. Is he like a Paul Gilbert and Zach Wilde? No, he's probably arguably not as good as those guys, but he never wanted to be, and he always seemed to walk away just as bands were getting big. UFO were never going to get huge, and then like Scorpions just about to make it, boom, I'm out of here. And he did the same on his solo stuff. I think if I'm not mistaken, he was asked to join Ozzy after Randy Rhoads, and he said no to that. So he never quite wanted the ultimate spotlight. He just wanted to get up and play. And I saw him in New York on his recent go around with Schenkerfest, and Gary Barden was there. And Gary Barden on the first couple of albums is fantastic. He hasn't a note left in his head, unfortunately. But Macaulay was there. He sings like a bird, fellow Irishman, so tremendous singer. Graham Bonnet was there. Doogie White was there. I can't remember. It could be. I don't know, whatever club in New York. I genuinely can't remember. Maybe the Sony Center, but wherever it was packed, and it was one of the best gigs I saw in my 6 years up in the Northeast. It was a phenomenal gig, and I think he's happier. Look, I'm just my opinion. I think he's happier playing in that 1,000-seater club to real fans of him, not just kind of rock fans, but they're fans of him, and I applaud him for it. So my take, and I think your take too, Matt, I think he's underrated, but there's a caveat in there. I don't think he wants to be in the greatest of all time. I don't think that bothers him, because his track record shows that.
Yeah, you're right. I don't think he was driven by that. He wasn't driven by the fame. He, like you said, I think he just probably he's always obviously accused, the guys from Scorpions stealing his stuff, his brother and everything.
Yeah, and his brother,
yeah. So, he's that guy. He seems like he's a pretty sensitive guy. So it's like, he's not, he probably would, like you said, there's a great point you made. That especially, obviously with the Scorpions, right? I mean, once they were taking off, he was out. Same with UFO. You're right. Every time, and like you said, he had opportunities. The opportunities were there for him. It just, like you said, he didn't go ahead and take it. He didn't take the Ozzy gig. I think he just wanted to do his own thing. I mean, that's what it seems like. He just wanted to do his own thing. The other thing I think too, when this is a discussion we'll get into a little later, and a lot of guys do this. We see in one guy doing it right now. We just talked about before, Kerry King, is they name their bands after themselves. You know? And I'm just, from a marketing and branding perspective, I think it's not a good thing. And like I said, I don't want to get too deep in this. We're going to come around to that as our next main, one of our main segments here this week. So I'll stop right there and we'll pick up a little bit later. But yes, underrated, I think 100%. I think anyone would agree with that. I really think so. Yeah, I think it's the same thing. But yeah, okay. So yes, well, there's some other great news, obviously this week too. Or obviously this one came out a couple weeks. This news, the band Riot, the old metal band from New York.
Sure.
They got a 4-part documentary that just came out. Riot's just one of those, just a very interesting band. Obviously, most of the original members are deceased and have been for at least a decade plus. Just a band that just happened, that every time they got some members in it, One or two of them had health problems, gone. But I mean, there's been so many changing parts in that band for, I mean, all this time. Now, of course, they still are, I guess, kind of together. They call themselves Riot 5. I guess it's like the fifth version of the band. That's why they call it that. They just put out a great record. I don't know if you have you heard that new record at all? It's really good.
I'm looking to pull it up right now on my I think they released
Okay.
2 songs if I'm not mistaken, and they're 2 tremendous tracks, tremendous songs, really good.
Yeah, it's really good. I've heard the
Yeah,
record too.
it is right there. I know it's hard to see, but that's the new one right there. So,
Yeah.
just 2 tracks. Feel the Fire and High Noon. Sorry, my lights just fucked up tonight, so it is
No,
what it
it's all
is.
good.
But yeah, it's 2 good songs. I urge anybody to check that out because they're a band that they've got the notoriety and we talk about in podcasts. But I think your average metal fan doesn't know about them, or
No.
maybe know Swords and Tequila, and that's about it, whatever, because it's a catchy song. But they're a great band, and I'm looking forward to checking out that 4-part series.
Yeah, and normally bands that go through all these different, it's the fifth version. Yeah, I'm usually kind of like, oh, come on, give it a rest. But you know what? These guys have done a good job. I mean,
Music is good. Music is good.
And if it's good, and as we've said, you don't want to. Yeah, you could change your band name, but no one's going to know who you are. So that's part of the whole marketing and branding thing too, as well.
Yep.
So anyway, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing that documentary. It just came out in the theaters in New York, so I hopefully it'll be up somewhere where we can check it out soon. I'm definitely interested in seeing that because that's a very interesting band, and just how that band's been able to survive, or because I wouldn't say they've ever thrived. They can say they've always been really
never.
underground. Yeah. I mean, they've always been really underground. So yeah, but and I guess I wasn't really in the early '80s. I was still about 7, 8 years old, so I didn't know them yet. But I guess they were really getting a lot of support, and then once Quiet Riot got big, that's when it all dwindled.
Yeah, I agree.
I think with Mental Health, and then of course just like a lot of those bands in the early '80s, they just. Once the hair stuff and all the glam stuff in LA took over, that was it for them. So anyway, yeah, Riot's got a documentary. And then the other news, Pat O'Brien. Okay, Pat O'Brien. You remember him? An interesting name. We haven't heard it in a while from Pat O'Brien. Obviously, he was the old guitarist from Cannibal Corpse. Is now a full-time member in EXHORDER. So I mean, it's good to see. I mean, you remember that whole thing with Pat O'Brien? He had some sort of, I guess, meltdown, right? He broke into some houses. To me, it sounded like it was just a bad.
Wasn't he in prison too? If I'm not he was like he did some time or something. I think that's. I hope I'm not wrong in saying that, but I'm pretty sure he did do some time. But yeah, he went through some shit. There's no question about that. But I know we were going to talk about that. But that new EXHORDER song that rocks, man. That was really good.
That's fucking good, man. I really think really EXHORDER is probably there. I mean, I hope they get the notoriety that they've deserved for a long time. If you go back and listen to those first 2 records they have, they're great. And it's amazing. They're one of those bands that you want to talk about stopping prematurely. I mean, they boom. Yeah, I mean, EXHORDER, they put out a great album a couple years ago when they had their comeback album. They hadn't put out an album in 30 years. And now they got a new one 2 years later. And yeah, this song, Year of the Goat, man, that song is killer. And that's actually going to be my track of the week, by the way. EXHORDER, Year of the Goat. I mean, like you said, that song it's to me as a perfect blend. What I love about that band is they got a perfect blend of thrash and groove metal. It's like a perfect blend of the two of them. Kind of like a Pantera in that regard,
Yeah,
really
I would agree. Because when you said it to me about, I came out like 2 weeks ago, and I think I checked it out 2 nights ago, and we were just chit-chatting about the show or whatever. And I said, damn, how did I miss this? So sometimes you just miss a song for whatever reason. You just don't check Blabbermouth for a day or two and it just skips by. And it says, so anybody listening, watching, and when you look at that album, first of all, you think it's like some crazy death metal shit. It's absolutely nothing like that. No. It's just a groovy, punchy, aggressive song, tight as fuck. Really, really good. So great pick this week.
Yeah. Well, also one of the things too, I mean, I know you said Blabbermouth, but it's not Blabbermouth is not the be all end all, right? Of news. Nope. You've got some great other sites, Brave Words and so forth. That I try to, I'll of course I'll check Blabbermouth. I mean, it's as they say, it's sort of the
It's
you
brand.
see CNN or the Fox or whatever
It's brand. Yeah.
of metal music, but because they get a lot of politics on there. But that's what I like about going to Brave Words. I mean, I prefer Brave Words because they usually have the same stories without all the politics, which is
And I don't like Blabbermouth. Obviously I jump on it a couple of times a day, see what's going on. It's a great resource. But I'll jump on to Metal Injection. I do Knotfest. I do Sleaze Rocks for some of the 80s kind of. And they're good too. So I just try to get a feed from different genres too.
Sure.
Blabbermouth is good, but it doesn't pick up everything. And they stop at the bullshit politics. They said some musicians said that Trump is this, or some guy said this about that, or some guy said Biden is that. This is it's a music site. I don't care what some obscure guy has. I don't care what his political views are, first of all, and I don't need to hear them irrespective of what they are. I couldn't care less. Just Blabbermouth just likes to clickbait and just kind of shovel it down your throat a little bit. So they need to stop with that bullshit.
Yeah, they do. Metal Injection is just as bad, if not worse.
I would agree.
Because they have these, they put their opinion. I mean, they all put opinions in there, and they you see where they lean, and it's like, look. I mean, I don't want to get into all this. I mean, on Aftershocks, had the Tremors.
This is not the show for that.
No,
we don't care.
So the bottom line is, I just the Blabbermouth. Like I said, you have to kind of check it out because it does get some of the stories out there first, but there are definitely other sites other than them and Metal Injection, like you said, that are much better in my opinion. But anyway, all right. So my track of the week is Year of the Goat EXHORDER. What do you got this week, Tom?
Okay, I'm going to go with, so caveat here is we're not, like the track of the week does not have to be a new track. Because if it's going to be new, you're going to have one track per week, and then there's after being 6 come out that week, so you miss 5. So you can't catch everybody. There's so much music. So our shows are once a week, and the amount of news that happens in the previous week is unbelievable. It just all builds up, and that's what we can easily fill 90 minutes, 2 hours talking about whatever. But my track of the week this week is Rush. Red Sector A.
Wow, you're going back.
We're going back. Race Under Pressure, 1984. I hope my stats are correct. Somebody can fact check me on that, but this is off the top of my head. But the reason I picked that is I'll when I'm listening to a band, so Rush as an example, I listen to nothing but Rush for an entire week or 10 days. Same with MSG the last couple of weeks. That's why that came into my head. But that song for me is a tremendous, because they went from all the 70s prog stuff right up to Moving Pictures. Then Subdivisions came out. So this was 81. The keyboards were creeping in. And then they went full on, I think at 83, 84. Maybe my timeline is off. But they went straight keyboards. Like they said to Alex Lifeson, hey, Alex, you could take about 9 years off. You're good. You can come on tour, but we don't need you for the studios. And they came back for Counterparts, and boom, they came back. But it's very keyboard heavy. It's very Police-ish.
Yes.
It's incredibly, musicianship is off the charts, as you can imagine. But Red Sector A by the good old band Rush from Canada is my track of the week. So what a variation this week, Matt. We went from EXHORDER to Rush, 2024 to 1984. Like we're spanning 40 years here.
Yeah, no, you know what, you nailed it, man. I was thinking the same. I was checking out the video last night when you told me this is what you want to play, and I was I have to prep it for the show and everything.
Yeah.
I'm listening to it live, and I'm like, it's very police, Indie Summers, the guitar wise, and like I said, and that was an interesting time, for all these bands from the 70s, right? Because it came the 80s, it came the synthesizers, and it was like, okay. I mean, like you said, I think some bands did it, I think bands like Van Halen and Rush did a good job at it because they didn't know. I mean, Van Halen didn't overdo it. He did it just enough. Eddie Van Halen, he didn't overdo it. Rush were a little heavy with it too, but same thing. They at least still kept the progressive angle to it. They maybe weren't as heavy, but they were more just radio friendly, obviously rock.
Yep.
But hey, that was, once again, I mean, that was a tough, when you're an aging band, member, a musician, from the 70s going into this whole different decade where it's completely like 180 from what you're used to. I mean, you saw those bands, Heart, and like I said before, Whitesnake. I mean, you had to adapt. You had to dress up in the outfits and suck it up, if you wanted to last. And some bands didn't. I give credit for the ones that didn't do it. But you never know until you're in that position what you would and wouldn't do. And if it's in
Sure.
your contract, you already, you might have had to do it. So
Well, if it's in your contract,
you know,
and if
you're
you
fucked,
buy,
yeah.
and you're fucked if you're in the contract, and like it's, or conversely, if you have management saying, hey, if you look like this, wear that, and write this type of song, and get Ron Evans in to produce it, you're going to make $1 million. You go, okay, I would.
Exactly.
So,
Of course.
that's what happened.
It's a job. It's a business. Exactly. So, all right. So let's go ahead. We're going to start things off here with EXHORDER Year of the Goat right here on Aftershocks TV. Check it out.